Well, thank you all for coming. I'm a little bit laryngitis-y, so forgive me for not projecting better. If you have not signed in and you know that you're not already on our email list, please go ahead and sign in. Most of you are familiar faces, but if you're new-ish, please sign in so we can add you to our list and you'll get all of our notifications. I'd like to thank all of you for coming. I'm reminding you we have Zoom running and it has closed captioning. So if you are speaking, please speak clearly and as loudly as you can. The mic is here, the camera is there. For the people on Zoom, I'm saying hello to you. And if you're not already on our email list, you can send a message through the Zoom chat and we will manually add you. We have a bunch of guest speakers, a few people to introduce. We're going to try to keep moving along speedily so that we're not here forever. We try to be respectful of everybody's time and dinner schedules and professional lives and personal lives. There will be time for some questions and answers later. You'll be timed just in order to keep things moving, and you'll have a minute to ask your question, and then whoever's most qualified to respond to it will. I'm going to move on to making some brief introductions. Peter, is Elaine here?
Elaine, Purple Circle. I don't see anyone from Purple. Anyone from Purple Circle here?
All right, so we were expecting somebody from the preschool downstairs called Purple Circle. She may arrive later and will give us a wave. We also wanted to thank Anna Pomeral, who's the manager of this facility, who's always very gracious about letting us share the space. We'd like to thank Shelley Fine, who's the president of, we say, I think, WISFISH, which is the organization behind this facility and several others in the neighborhood. They always make us feel very at home. We'd also like to introduce Andrew Jen, who I just saw, but you took your hat off, so I can. I've been told that you'd like a minute to speak. You may have the floor.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, sorry, Andrew Jen is coming up, is the executive director of the Broadway Malls Association.
Yes, I am. Yeah, and I'm here really to say thank you to everyone here, to Peter in particular, for the regular cleanup days that the Block Association does. It really brings the Broadway Mall Association back to its roots, which began as volunteers who were just interested in cleaning up the neighborhood and making things look better, make the neighborhood, come together around a common goal. And we don't get here as often as Peter would like us to do, but we're going to be good, we promise. And really just to say that, the key to the community building, and we know Shelley Fine very well. He worked with my wife on the Bloomingdale playground down at the public school on 103rd Street. And the idea that you must repeat things every week, like clockwork, to make progress. And with that, you get to meet people. You have maybe some really good Iranian lemonade and cakes, and it's why we live in New York City. So the Broadway Mall Association that I'm proud to represent takes care of 83 malls from 70th Street to 168th Street. So we have a staff of 3 people, maybe 4 now. We have some new people, but it's a very small organization, but we have a big, kind of mission, and we can only do it with the help of the neighborhood. And I really, so I'm very happy to be here and to meet everyone and to thank you all. And we'll see you tomorrow, I guess, right, Pete?
Tell us about the plantings.
Oh, yes. And, the exciting thing is that we have begun the restoration of the malls. So the one right out here on 103rd Street, with native plants. So plants that you would have seen 400 years ago, really up and down the east coast of the United States. And with the native plants comes new habitat and biodiversity and plants that can take care of themselves because they're good New York plants, you know, they're strong. So you'll see them going in, and then what we've also learned is that we did a little scientific study with the New York City Bird Alliance, which used to be called the Audubon Society. And they did a survey last year, and they're going to do another one this year. And they found that the migratory birds that pass through on the Atlantic Flyway are using the malls more than they ever did. And we were a little unfair. We compared them to Amsterdam and Columbus, and the birds don't go there because you have the food is on the malls. You know, the native plants have the food, they attract the right insects, the honeybees, the monarch butterflies. And so we're creating this little biodiverse habitat right across the street from the building. So and the evidence was very strong. It was measurable, and it surprised the Bird Alliance that how much the birds really appreciated these new plants. And that's only after 1 year, so we'll see how the second year goes. But yeah, and I promise we're looking for more public art. I know we've had a few over the past few years. I'm afraid the piano wants to go to Sherman Square because it's close to Lincoln Center, but we're always looking for new ideas for public art as well to put in that nice little niche on 3rd Street. So anything else, Peter? I think that's, yeah, just happy to be here.
Question, if
Yes.
somebody has an idea about a public art installation,
Yeah.
what's the best way to contact you?
That's
To
great.
get it?
Well, my email is agenn @broadwaymall.org. But I also encourage you to look, we have a brand new website. It went live just last week. And we have a whole public art section, and we also have you know, all of the ways to contact us about ideas. And we do appreciate it. You can also reach out to us. We pick up the phone. If you see something on the mall, it needs to be taken care of, we can come here, and we'll be here every Wednesday as well.
I just want to clarify, because I think the
Yeah.
closed captioning left off an N. There are 2 N's, AGENN,
Yeah.
at
two
BroadwayMall.org.
Yes, it's like Glenn, but without the L. Yeah, yeah.
Mall, third, within this. Broadway Mall.
Mall, singular.
Singular.
Yeah, the park
Broadway
says
Mall.
Broadway Malls, we say Broadway Mall Association.
Got it.
Yeah. But I can always follow up if anyone has a question, and we really do love to hear from everyone in the community. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to cover one other topic before we move along to our guest speakers. We have a bit of a slideshow that will not coordinate with what I'm saying, but it's a bunch of photos that you may enjoy seeing that illustrate some of the Block Association's activities in the neighborhood. You can go ahead and start that, Rich. The idea for the slideshow was we care about. Well, some people who are new to the neighborhood wonder, so what do we care? What does the Block Association care about? And we care about the residents, of course, their safety, their comfort, their contentment living in the neighborhood. We care about safety in the neighborhood. Something you may not know that we're working on is a survey of all the security cameras and security equipment that's already in use in the neighborhood. The Block Association recently supported the reduction of the speed limit on 103rd Street enforceable by law, not just suggested speed limit, as a safety measure for all residents and passersby. We care about events. We like to throw events. We have upcoming spring planting that will be on Saturday, May the 16th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That meets in front of 878 West End Avenue. You can come, you'll pick up plants that will be provided. There are gardening tools and a list of which tree wells are in need of planting. We have the longest table, which is a giant outdoor picnic that one of our board members Debbie Getz launched for us last year. That takes place on Sunday, June the 14th from 5 to 7. In the fall, we always do a giant Halloween parade and party. And in the winter, we have solstice carol. What else do we care about? We care about cleanliness. And that's why the Block Association has funded a program called Street Love that the Park to Park Shared Street Organization launched. Every week, there's a team that goes all the way up and down every street in Block Association territory, picking up trash, watering plants in the summer, alerting us to other maintenance issues, and generally doing more to keep the neighborhood clean than the Department of Sanitation can do on its own. I'm sorry?
No, sanitation can't clean this block because of boulders.
Certain sections are inaccessible, but that's one block within the 4th block. Our territory is
Keep going.
Broadway to Riverside. That block is one of the 4 blocks that this organization is responsible for. We also care about maintaining productive partnerships with our elected officials. And in fact, we were invited, the Block Association was invited by Gail Brewer, who is no longer our representative, but still maintains her ties with us from when she was. She's hosting a panel about block associations and how to launch them and what's effective and what doesn't work. And we'll be participating in that later this week. We care about beautification, and we put a lot of time and effort into cleanliness, horticulture, both the plantings in the tree beds and through the shared street program, the planters that are on those blocks. We've been involved with trash removal concerns. We've been involved with street sweeping concerns. We've been involved with the removal of scaffolding that's been in place for too long and the removal of graffiti. We had a question earlier about scaffolding that we will address later in the meeting. We care about keeping in touch, and that's why we do maintain an email list. We maintain a website that has tons of useful information. And we publish a quarterly newsletter that goes under every door in the neighborhood. It's a very elaborate distribution list that winds up with a hard copy, and there are plenty of extras on the table outside getting slipped under the door. We need some help with that right now, so if you have a little time that you can share with us 4 times a year on a pretty regular schedule, we'd be grateful for an extra pair of hands or 2. We care about the founding of the Block Association, which took place 55 years ago now. And the people who were behind that. It's one of the reasons the 50-year Hall of Fame was born. One of the ways we express our respect for those people is when they pass, we try to demonstrate our support in some way or another to the survivors of that person, as we recently had occasion to do when Ted Berger, one of the original founders, left us. We care about our community partners, and we have a long list of them. We do a lot of cross-pollinating with Bloomingdale Aging in Place. We participate with the Columbus Amsterdam Business Improvement District. We're longtime partners with the Mount Sinai Residential Treatment Center on 102nd Street. We work collaboratively with Wisfish. We've worked with Hosteling over on Amsterdam. We've worked with the 104th Street Block Association, and very recently we started a nice partnership with the Uptown Film Center. And just to note about them, they have the last of their immigration film series coming up. It's called El Séptimo Dia. It'll be screened at the New York Historical on May 15th at 6:30 p.m. We care about small businesses, and we try to feature them in every issue of the newsletter. And now that we're participating in a program called Bloomingdale Bites, we have the opportunity to support the local restaurants by giving them an opportunity to share their food with the community, building new clientele. We care about volunteerism a great deal because nothing we do comes without volunteers. The more volunteers we have, the more stuff we can do. We were recently offered the opportunity to do some sort of a bike swap where people, for instance, with children who have outgrown their bikes can donate their bikes and get a new bigger bike. Or people who no longer have need of bikes can donate their bikes and somebody who needs a bike could adopt that bike. We'd love to do it. We're going to need hands. So whatever your particular area of interest is, we can find something for you to do. So please let us know, and we would love to have your help. We're happy for your financial contributions as well. But at this point in time, the more able bodies we have, even doing one small something once in a while, the better able we are to function. Right, moving right along, I think you could shut down the slideshow, and I'm going to turn the program over to our invited guest speakers. We were expecting Denise Gale, who's the new commanding officer of the 24th precinct. He was called away on official police business. So instead, we have Stephen Jones, our community affairs officer, who we've worked very successfully with on all manner of topics. And I think we have the Q team, is that? So we have the Q team, Q for quality, right?
Yes.
They are gone. And hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate the time.
So, hi, I'm Police Officer Stephen Jones, one of the Community Affairs Officers here in the 24th Precinct. 24th Precinct covers from 86th Street to 110th Street. You guys all live in it. And we go from Central Park to the river. These are members of our Q team. This is Officer Lazar and this is Officer Chopra. Hey, Dan. Our Q teams are kind of new now. They're a new, what, 6 months now-ish? About a year, 6 months.
It'll be a year in July.
Year. So they have replaced like the neighborhood coordination program that we used to have. These two both actually used to be part of that program. They were neighborhood coordination officers and then they moved to the Q team. The Q team focuses on
Quality of life. So basically, any 311 that you guys have, like noise complaints, narcotics, disorderly people, that's 911. Also, we cover quality of life stuff, harassment, illegal parking, blocked hydrants, anything that like could hinder quality of life is what we are there for, to help like solve the problem. So you guys could have a better quality of life.
Essentially, we're trying to streamline possibly the one system, to help public officers. We're trying to streamline the 301 system process. So when you guys make a complaint, a 301 complaint, we're basically the ones responding. And then the 911 calls, public officers do the right end of that. And okay, time to respond to those type of serious situations.
So basically, any issues you guys have that are, things that aren't necessarily an emergency. You're not watching somebody get beat up, somebody's attacking you, somebody's stealing a car, and it's not like an emergency right now, like that it would normally be a 911 call. Like say somebody's parked in front of a hydrant, right? Everybody sees that, right? We always see that all the time. If you see somebody parked in front of a hydrant, call 311, and these guys are gonna get dispatched to it. They're gonna issue a summons, and it might get it towed, or there might be a reason it's there. Who knows? They're gonna figure that out. They're now like our new problem solvers in the neighborhood. So like if you have kind of an ongoing issue with something in the neighborhood, and you've been called, if you call 311 about like a chronic noise complaint, they're gonna get dispatched to it eventually, and they're gonna be the ones who are gonna try to help you work through that. If you have a noisy neighbor or a noisy, restaurant or something in your neighborhood. So, that's kind of what, and again, like he said, they wanted to streamline the 311 system. Because the 911 system is kind of getting overwhelmed, so they figured, let's use the 311 system that we have in place to make it a little more efficient. So that's what we're working with. That's what we're trying to do. Still working some kinks out, I'm sure, with anything. Yes,
Now we're calling 104th precinct.
it's easier if you call 311. You'll get there quick, you get a quicker answer. If you call the precinct for something, like you have like something going on, or, like say you don't need to go to park car somewhere. If you call the precinct, what happens is the person who answers the phone then has to try to find one of the officers who's out in the field, who's not on another job. Whereas if you just call 311 about it, it gets dispatched right away to, through our radios. So it's much quicker and efficient to just call 311. Yes.
People have been calling 311, and they don't get any response.
So we don't deal with DOT. We deal with like, things that are gonna be, of a criminal or a civil nature. We're not,
Like, would be like expansions out of the fire hydrants.
yeah, that's DOT. We don't, that's like it's something, you still call 311 if you're trying to get to like, the other city agencies. But like, we're not gonna get dispatched to something that would involve DOT. That's, yes.
You guys liaise with, adult protective services? That's still doing you guys?
Well, they contact us when they need us, and then if we have a situation, we contact them. Yeah,
In the past, I would contact the community affairs officer at 24th precinct directly.
right. Yeah, you just do it the way you used to, always did.
Like through 311?
Well, it just depends, you work for,
No, I mean, it's had to do with the, neighbor or someone in the neighborhood.
yeah, you can do that, you can do a 311. You try 311 with that, and,
Okay.
all right, yes.
Back to 311, is it faster to call 311 to get a response from the Q team than to put it in online?
So it's the same. So basically, it's the same, program. So if you have the app or put online, it's the same as calling. So it's whatever preferred.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yes, I want a wellness check. We don't have a reason to believe someone is hurt, but we just haven't seen them in a while.
That's not one.
Yeah, you can put 911 for that, yeah. They'll dispatch somebody else to do that. All right.
Is there ever a reason to call the actual number of the precinct?
I mean,
Want to see the reports ready?
yeah, like, if you did a complaint report or something, you wanna see if it's ready, you wanna get the number for it, then you would call the precinct.
How about if there's something that's urgent but not an emergency?
Like what?
Like middle of the night, a car alarm's going off.
311.
Yeah, and so that gets to you as quickly?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, 311 and 911 are basically go hand in hand with the response time. So as soon as you call 311 or put it online, we get it to us.
Yeah.
Same thing as a 911 does.
I don't know if this is how we look, but there used to be a program for safety where the stores would have a sign for kids to, how many they tell them, if they needed help or something. I don't know if you have anything to do with that.
Yeah, no, we don't. No,
That was a
that's,
great program.
I usually think, I think that's like, doesn't like, Columbia have that? You see those for Columbia students and stuff, like, I see signs for that.
Used to have it all, yeah.
Yeah, oh, no, yeah,
If there's a recurring 311 problem, is there any way that we can get in touch with the members of the Q team directly just to alert them?
Yeah, of course. I'll actually, whoever wants to speak to me afterwards as well.
I'm sorry, say again.
Whoever wants to speak to me afterwards as well, I'll give you my card.
Okay, great.
Touch base with whatever issue you want.
Also, our emails are still on the 24 precincts page because we were neighborhood coordination officers before we were body of life officers.
Okay,
So if you look up both our names as well, you'll see our emails on there.
okay,
If you ever need to contact us for anything, you could call the precinct and just ask for our email, or they'll get in touch with us directly. If you want to leave a phone number, we'll call you back as well.
thank you.
And then, on another note, package thefts. Big issue, I'm sure everybody knows that package thefts are a big issue right now, right? So I actually brought these handy little flyers. You guys, I'm gonna leave them out on that table you guys have. You guys wanna take some hanging in your buildings, by the entranceways, it's just helpful tips. So we can try to combat the package theft before it even starts. But that's definitely one of our big issues we have at the precinct right now, is the, you want one of that, got it now.
Before they're all done.
Make copies.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's, packaging stuffs are huge. That's one of the big things we're getting right now. So, use some of these helpful tips. And another thing we're getting a lot of, another big issue we've been having lately are scams.
Mm.
The scam calls, the scam emails. If you get a phone, the best way to think about the scam stuff, if somebody calls your phone and calls your number and says, you owe us money,
Yeah.
just hang up on him. Just hang up on him. Don't, just be like, no, I don't buy it. That's it. Just don't even like entertain it at all. If somebody calls, now this is a tough one. Sometimes people will call and say, hey, grandma, it's me. I'm in trouble. I got arrested somewhere. Yeah, it does, and it happens.
The voices are overlaid or something.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, so, but what you do there is just be like, okay, I'm gonna call your mom, bye. And then hang up and call mom or dad or whoever to be like, hey, is Billy okay? And, then do it that way. Because, that's a pretty big scam we've been getting too, so. Just be careful when somebody calls you that you don't know, right? Just, hang up on them. What's that?
I didn't answer my phone.
See, yeah, that's perfect. Don't answer your phone, it hurts. Don't even answer that. I'm calling you all the time and I have a question. Oh, but other than that, I'm gonna leave these out there. And then also another big one we've been trying to push lately is we've been getting a lot of pedestrian struts. So one of the best things I can say is when you're walking, always know what's going on around you. Don't think that the guy driving the car or the guy on the bike is doing what they're supposed to. Always be aware of what's going on and do what you need to do to make sure you're safe. Because, we all see the delivery guys, they're flying along, not paying attention or getting the next thing on their app or whatever. But you just make sure before, I personally, whenever I'm walking out here, before I cross the street, even when I have the green light, even when I have the walk sign, I stop. And I make sure nothing's coming before I even step in the street, especially when there's a bike lane around, like on Amsterdam Avenue, I'm crossing Amsterdam. That's the first thing I do is make sure there's no bikes flying up. So that's a big one like lately too. So just, it's one of those things, take care of yourself. Make sure you're doing it yourself and okay, and you're watching out for you. Okay? But other than that, you guys got anything else?
Also, if you want any more informational flyers, if you have Facebook or X, or used to be Twitter, people still call it that, we post a bunch of informational flyers about package thefts, identity scams, how to cross the street correctly. We're actually in charge of that as well. So if you know anyone, or if you have Facebook or X, Twitter, basically you could just go on the 2-4 precincts page and we post all the informational flyers for everyone as well. So if you guys need more information on anything.
Along the same lines as that's so there was being a little check. You really about one of those.
All the what?
Yeah, check, even and.
Oh, yeah, we're always trying to catch those guys. Yeah, we're always looking to catch them. Yeah.
So what? That.
Well, the postal service did that, but they're still doing it. It still happens, the check washing. So the best thing to combat that is go to the post office to mail your stuff. Don't tell the post, turn this camera off so the post office doesn't get mad at me. That happens. But the best thing to do, just take it to the post office and give it there. Don't put it in the blue boxes. If you're putting a check in the mail, post office. Yeah, and all your other mail is fine, but if you don't risk it with a check, put it in just take it to the post office, give it to them there. That's your best bet with that. That's the safest thing you can do. Yes.
About the scams, I have a cell phone and I also have a landline. And I also have my landline, a little answering machine. And so I tell people who I'm expecting a call from, that there's no announcement on the machine, so identify yourself and then I'll pick up. And sometimes I just get these weird calls, so I can pick up. I said, they're listening.
Yeah, and then the scammers, they leave you a message like, hey, we can bring your mortgage down 58%. Like, I don't have a mortgage, man. So, yeah, I get those on my phone all the time, the scams. I just don't answer. So, but, yes.
Regarding the neighborhood, you know how this is, but regarding the neighborhood, we have a school on the corner. And we use the parks, and recently there was a shooting in the children's there, right across the street. So I'm asking your advice, what to do in that situation. Do I go directly to the precinct and say, how do we know that our children are gonna be safe when we take them out? Right, is there, police patrolling around? I know there used to be on Amsterdam, but I don't know if that's still happening.
You're talking about PS.
No, you go to that playground, but no, it's a school right there on the early childhood program.
Oh, perfect.
Circle, yes.
They were looking for you earlier when we started.
Yeah, I had to close the school. I need to make sure everyone's safe.
We're always around. We're always out there, especially now since that last shooting, there's a much bigger presence of us up there right now. It'll be like that for, a little while. So, but, we're always out there. We're always around, driving around and patrolling, so.
Is there a particular community person in the precinct that I can contact?
Yeah, I think you and I have talked.
Oh,
Yeah, talk on the phone, yeah.
I just heard Steve's great.
Yeah, we said that. He's telling me a lot.
I'll say.
Yeah, just call me. Will you call me tomorrow? Actually, no, I'm gonna be tomorrow, a big day. I'm gonna be up at the King of England in Harlem, so I'm not gonna be around. Gonna be busy. So, but call me Thursday.
Okay.
Do you have it? Yeah, I'll call you guys. I'll call you Thursday. I can still have your number.
I'll call you anyway.
Yeah, just give me a call. I'll be Thursday. Bye.
You'll answer the phone.
I hope so. Okay. I don't know your money. I know my name, yeah. You're a scam. Never heard of you. All right, anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Business card.
Yes.
Elaine, I have Officer Jones's contact info, and I know you have my email. So if you need it, feel free to email me
Yeah.
and I'll Kenny Campbell.
Oh, okay. Well, because I email all these people, but I don't know you by face.
We've never met face to face, thank you.
I'm gonna send you a picture.
And I'd like to say, anybody who doesn't get one of these, it'll get posted at the website. I will have copies available. You can write to info at it's the Block Association address, info at W102-103 block ASSN.org. Thank you. It's on the website. You don't have to remember that. Just go to the website, click on that, and it will reveal itself.
And I should have said it, I should have started with it. Captain Gale was actually pretty upset that she wasn't able to make it tonight, but she did have to, she'd get called, she has to go do some other stuff today. So she was actually looking forward to it. She loves coming to these things and meeting everybody, so we'll, work on the next one, like your next meeting, or something, try to.
And I can actually vouch for them because I've been the victim of both an identity theft and a mail fraud. And in both cases, the perpetrators were arrested. And I just found out from one of the Queen's Assistant District Attorneys who prosecuted the mail theft, that one of the people was turned over to federal custody because it was part of a much bigger ring. And I learned through a different source that the precinct had in fact arrested the guy behind the identity theft issue. And I was very pleased to hear about all of that. So thanks.
Great. All right.
Rich has the question.
Just another vouching for the 24th precinct story. I keep my bike in the hallway of our building, and the delivery person somehow got in and took my bike. And I have an Apple AirTag on the bike, and I called 911, I could see exactly where the bike was. 24th precinct came out and they went down the bike and brought it back to my home.
Wow.
So thanks to a little $20 air tag, I got my bike back and the 24th precinct.
Thank you for coming.
All right, thank you. I'll leave the stuff on the table out there, so make sure you grab one.
We don't have an issue for you.
It is nice, yeah. I was actually expecting several issues, they usually come flying my way.
I got that.
No, well, thanks, Doug. Bye, everybody.
Okay, so now I can go back to the beginning of the program. Very, very atmospheric. And introduce two people who weren't here at the very beginning. Excuse me. Elaine, if you don't mind, just stand up. Thank you. Give a little wave. We wanted to introduce Elaine, who is the director of the Purple Circle Preschool from even before it was right on the corner, right? You were the director at 100th Street. Wow. Thank you. That's Elaine Carroll. I'm sorry, I should have given her whole official form. Thank you, Elaine, for popping in. We value your friendship and the partnership you're forming with other organizations in the neighborhood. Thank you. And I'd also like to introduce Valerie. Are you still here? Valerie. Oh, maybe she had to go. Valerie stopped in. She's the director currently of the Mount Sinai Residential Treatment Facility on 102nd Street between West End and Riverside. They've been hosting Block Association's monthly meetings for as long as I've been attending them, which is 40 years and then some. So they're wonderful community partners and I really value what they offer to us. Whenever we have an event, there are people who are helping. I've been told, I wasn't here when they first moved into the neighborhood, but I've been told that there was a lot of pushback in the community when they were buying the brownstone that the residents takes place in, and it's just such a good testament to what good can happen when a community comes together, that they've been here for over 40 years. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware, there's never been any kind of incident and there's been no problem that could not be solved. Really great neighbors. So I'm sorry that Valerie had to leave. I see you standing, but I don't know who you are.
Yeah, sorry, I was gonna introduce my name is Eli Milford. I'm running for state assembly in this neighborhood, and we just opened up a state campaign office on 105th and Broadway and the old Silver Moon bakery space. So I'm really here just to watch that. I want to let people know they're welcome to come by at any point. There's a primary in June 23rd.
We are aware. We just published some information in our newsletter about it, in fact. We're very supportive of people voting and we're very exclusionary, I would have to say, about politics.
Yes.
So, oh, Valerie, you're back. You just missed my whole introduction. This is Valerie, who runs this. Thank you for coming. I was just saying, for so many years, the Mount Sinai facility and the Block Association have been very successful. Neighbors, partners.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our community, we have a community of 24 residents, they're not allowed to work. So it's good to have when our communities arise, where they could be busy, they can make themselves busy, make a couple extra dollars and still stay in compliance with the halfway house. Yeah, so they're very grateful for the Block Association.
Yeah, that's
and then to show gratitude, they gave us this wonderful television. They rave about that. Yeah, so it's definitely, it's very good having a community like this, so supportive to that.
I think it's important to the community as a whole to have that.
Yes. And you always say, take pride in your work. That way you get recognized. So we actually have residents who get recognized for the work they do, in street love. Thank you.
We're glad that we can help make it possible. Thank you, Valerie. Moving right along. Next, we are going to present our 2025 financial report. And present our budget for the year 2026. So Gary is one of our treasurers, will take the floor and tell us what we need to know about the dollars and cents. Thank you, Gary.
First of all, it's good to be with you, and I have, here, it's not gonna show very well there, but I have 3 images, and, I'll just repeat what's on those images, if you can't see that there. The first one is how do we spend our money? And I have 5 items that we spent money on this year, and I'll tell you how much. The oldest thing that we are doing is the newsletter. It comes out 4 times a year, and we distribute it to about 2,000 households, 2,000 apartments and individual buildings. A large number. I mean, we're only 7 blocks. Or so, we have a large number of people on that. And we spent this year for the 4 issues, $6,000 in publishing them and getting them circulated. The second thing that we do is that we have events. And the biggest event by far was the longest table event, which we started for the first time last year. On it. All of these events require a lot of volunteer work to get them done. So if you want to help us on these things, we'll do it. But there are also real expenses on, for example, for the longest table, we had to have that many tables, that many chairs. We got them donated, but we needed a truck to bring them there. And so there are always costs that are associated with these kinds of things. We do the children's Halloween event, great pleasure for especially those families that have kids in our neighborhood. We do the solstice caroling around the end of the year on it. Last year we spent $7,700 on all of the events, and that doesn't account for all of the volunteer work that went into doing those things. The third thing that we do, and we're very proud of. We've been doing it now for 2.5 years. Is working on the streets in the neighborhood. What do we mean by that? We do the weekly street cleaning. It's done partly by volunteers who come, and partly by people from the halfway house who spend 2 hours to come and do it. And they're the most efficient cleaners I've ever in my life seen. But we're all through the year, we also do planting of the tree wells, we do watering of them, and we're trying to increase the beauty of our streets, which is really important to us. Last year, we spent $9,026 on all of the street-oriented events or expenditures. We also contribute a modest amount of money to 6 or so of neighborhood organizations. Partly to give them resources over and above what they have, and those organizations include the hosteling organization, who puts us up for our Bloomingdale events that go on in that place. The Halfway House, which we've mentioned a couple of times now, the Senior Housing Organization, the Film Center, and KBUD, the Columbus Amsterdam BID, who we joint venture on a number of these kinds of projects. And they every year end up putting some of their own money into them because they always cost more than what we are giving them on it. So at the end of the year, we generally give a small amount of money for thanks for what they're doing. Last year, we spent $1,990 on that. And then finally, we have operating expenses. Operating expenses are of all kinds. I won't go into the detail on them, but we spent last year $2,720 on. So altogether, last year, we spent $27,487. Now, where did the money come from? Revenues. The biggest proportion of it came from you. And people that paid membership fees to the organization, people who gave gifts in a number of cases to the organization and so on. $21,407 came from our contributors who live in the neighborhood. Advertisements for the newsletter, $1,500 was contributed by businesses, most of them within walking range of our area here. And we appreciate that very much. We have a modest amount of money deposited during the year, and $660 of interest was paid from that. One building provided a contribution of $140 to us because of their appreciation for what we were doing, especially to the street cleaning and other efforts here. And we're hoping that in the next few years, we might convince a number of other additional buildings to contribute money to the organization. And then a miscellaneous at $460 that came when people put money in the little jars that we have at the events that we're going on here, and that was $460 in cash. So the total revenues came to $24,213, and that left us with a deficit of $3,274. Fortunately, we have a little bit of cushion that we keep in our bank account for just that kind of issue. But our hope is that this year you would help us to encourage other people in your buildings, people that you know here, to contribute to us and join the organization. And I wanted to end by saying a few things about the memberships. We have, as I said, about 2,000 residential units in our little area that we're dealing with here. Last year, 174 of those households contributed money to us. So that's a very small fraction of it. I mean, that's, I think, about 7% of all who live in this area who contributed to it. So there's lots of room, it seems to me, to encourage other people to join and contribute what they can on it. We, on average, the people who contributed $123, which is a good amount of money. We have told people that contribute what you can and suggested that $140 would be a good contribution for us. In fact, if we'd had $140 from everybody, we wouldn't have the deficit that we have here at the moment. And so for next year, our intention is to continue that set of activities that we have. We have only one other thing which we're working on at the moment, which we can't put a price on yet. But it is the question of whether we can figure out a way to make use of the cameras that are on street corners and other places around here to provide a kind of network of people that are observing what's going on the streets and calling the police when it's necessary and warning others. We had one case where a person was persistently stealing parcels from a couple of buildings on West End Avenue, and by working with them and working with the police, that done. And of course, they didn't have any cameras in their buildings, and I think they're now convinced that they better put some into their buildings and be able to do that. But our hope is this coming year, we will come to some kind of a program that will assist in that effort. and that will cost us some additional money. So all of this depends upon us being able to maintain the contributions that we've had and trying to redouble on them to other organizations, other people and other families, other buildings, and hopefully we can get rid of that deficit. So, any questions?
I have actually two. One is, does the membership count that you showed, when I was on the board of my co-op, I convinced them to the building to contribute
Yes.
annually. Does that show up as a membership, or have they stopped doing it?
What happened was that when we went through the COVID period on it, and when we eliminated the guard that walked the street.
Yeah.
And that, I think everyone who knew about that system felt that it was a lot of money being paid for almost no benefits to us on it. And because they couldn't actually do anything if they saw things going on, and all they could do is call the 311 line or the 911 line on that. When those were eliminated, because of COVID and because of loss of that, almost all of the buildings stopped contributing any money to it. We had one building that contributed last year. We would love to rebuild that piece, and that might be the most.
I mean, it's a quality of life issue. It has to do with, curb appeal, and every co-op I know is constantly concerned with making sure that the resale prices stay high this is a big shareholder value issue. And I think you guys, I think you guys might make more visibility about the fact that you clean the streets once a week, for example.
In fact, we've just created a letter that's about to be sent out to each landlord and co-op board in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Detailing what the block association does for the neighborhood that benefits the buildings. We're dropping the suggested contribution rate per unit for the buildings. Since we aren't funding the guard right now, we don't need as much money as we used to.
I wouldn't even mention the guard.
We're not, but it's just how we came to the math of what we're asking the buildings to contribute, which will be less than they were contributing pre-COVID, just to get them back on board.
Co-op boards rotate, they might not even compare.
Maybe
with
not.
what they used to spend.
So we have a letter
It's a
prepared.
topic for them.
It's in my computer, it's waiting for me to print it and send it out, and hoping that by the time we have another newsletter out, there will again be a list of buildings who are contributing. And if you live in a building, whether it's a landlord building or a co-op board building, and you have any sway, encourage your neighbors to encourage the board to respond to that letter and make a contribution.
Yeah, for the larger buildings, it really is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I did have one other question.
Yeah, sure.
Which is, I know that a little bit of a sore point, but is there any talk or thought about bringing back the block party, the selling, the emptying your closets and getting rid of stuff?
We would love to do that,
Uh-huh.
because it's such a fun event, and the number of people who come out for it, it's amazing. There's one stumbling block and only one stumbling block, which is it takes a whole lot of people. And every time we put out a call for somebody to organize it, crickets. And we can't do it without somebody who's willing to take on the job of coordinating. We get.
Would you be interested?
Worker bees.
I mean, I volunteer a lot, but I focus on political matters.
There is one other issue on it, which is that the 104 Block Association does a very successful.
They do,
Right.
but we used to do ours in
In the spring.
In the spring.
They do the fall, we did the spring. Even if you can't personally volunteer to do it, strong arm people, you get all the points if you find somebody to do it for us, even if you don't want to do it yourself.
I can't, but yes.
Yeah, but you know people.
We're asking.
Yeah.
Everybody knows somebody. Okay, any other questions related to budget and financial report and what we do with the money you so generously give us? All right, moving right along. The good part, as far as I'm concerned. The moment some of you have been waiting. Some years ago, I think it was 2010, we featured at our meeting the West Side Preservation Society, West End Preservation Society, I think it was called. It was the group that had devoted itself to creating landmark status for the entire length of West End Avenue. And I remember sitting in this room at that meeting, listening to the speakers and thinking, what about the people in those buildings? They have stories to tell. And we decided as an organization that we wanted to find out if there were people in those buildings who had been here a long time, and there were. We're tonight inducting 3 new people into our 50-year Hall of Fame. That brings our head count up to 50. So we have 50 people in 15 years, 16 years now, who have lived here for 50 years or more. I'm a little sentimental because I never realized when I launched the program that when somebody moved into a neighborhood as an adult who was already here for 50 years, they may not be here for much longer. And we have had to say goodbye to some of them, and that makes me sad. But I'm very glad tonight that we have 3 longtime residents who are very much alive and well. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of them and introduce them to you. If I make any mistakes when I speak about you, please send me an email and let me know so I can make corrections, as we do post these bios at our website. And that way other people can read about the people in the neighborhood who have been here so long. So first is Martha Weisberg. Is she still on the Zoom, Rich?
Yes,
Okay, hi Martha, thank you for joining us.
we could put her on the screen.
Can we get her on screen?
Mark, turn up your video.
There we go. We can see you now, Martha.
Thanks to be Martha. Whenever I speak to the 50-year people, I always ask them, how did you find your apartment? And invariably, there's an interesting story. And it varies greatly. Martha, I chose her to go first tonight because she actually qualified for the Hall of Fame 2 years ago, but we didn't connect until May. She grew up on Long Island, and I grew up on Long Island too, so I knew what she meant when she said she was one of the kids who would get on the train and come into the city every chance she got. I was one of them too. She lived for a while in St. Louis when she went to college. She lived for a while after college in Connecticut, but you can't take the city out of a girl, so she was back. She found a job the way we used to find jobs, by looking at the classifieds in the New York Times. Found a job. And on the very first day that she was at work, she met a man. His name was Jeffrey. They dated, they decided to move in together, later they married. And I never met him, but I'm sure he was wonderful. And one of the most wonderful things about him was that he had a rent stabilized lease in the neighborhood. Martha found that didn't stay with that first job, even though she did stay with the husband, and found her true life's work teaching English at a high school in New Rochelle. She worked there for many years, and along the way discovered that a woman who lived in the building directly across the street from her also worked there. And they started carpooling and enjoying each other's company very much. That other woman does still live in the neighborhood, and they do still spend time together. And they had the benefit of carpooling, which meant when we had a snowstorm and the car needed to be dug out, there were 2 of them to do it. And in the evening, when they came home from school and you couldn't get into a spot because the plow had been through, there were two of them to dig out a spot. She also made a friend who she had lunch with at school every week. They both retired, so then they started having lunch, not at school once a week. He lives a little to our north, and one of the things they enjoy very much is exploring the restaurants in the neighborhood, and continue to do that. She's an avid reader. She's a news junkie. She was an original member of BAP's very first book group, and she regularly attends meetings of a support group for people with cochlear implants. She describes having had that procedure as life-changing. She thinks of herself as the luckiest person in the world. When I asked her about what's different in the neighborhood and what's the same from 50 years ago, which is another question I always ask our 50-year inductees, she said that there were more inexpensive hangouts, places where you could just go park and have a beer or have a coffee, and it didn't cost quite so much. And she hopes that what she recalls, that there were always lots of low-priced activities that people starting out could enjoy. She hopes that's still true today. She says that the neighborhood is far safer now than when she moved in. And she misses that there were so many movie theaters back then and so few now. She's excited that the Uptown Film Center will be reopening the Metro, although it's not going to be for another 2 years. She wonders whether the West Side Highway will close to traffic as it did 50 years ago this summer when the parade of tall ships came up. Something that hasn't changed at all that she thinks is terrific is the quality of the relationships that she's formed with service people in the neighborhood. And she mentioned Hector, many of our mail carriers, and the UPS guy, and many of the doormen, not even in her own building, but the ones who she got to know walking back and forth to her own and her own building as well. So just a note about Hector. Hector has told us that he's planning to retire. So I am hoping to work with some of the other buildings in the neighborhood and put together a retirement party for him, just because he's been so much a part of our lives for so many years. So stay tuned, and there'll be more information once there's some sort of a plan, not just an update. So Martha, welcome to the Hall of Fame. Thank you for joining us. Let's all give Martha a round of applause.
Thanks so much, Hetty.
You would like to say a few words, and you can unmute her.
Okay, I think you stole a bit of my thunder, but that's okay. I'm not sure why managing to make it through 51 years or 2 years, as you said, is worthy of recognition. And I'm reminded of those sometimes bewildered individuals who are asked for the secret to their great longevity. I never touched alcohol, says one. One stiff drink a day is the answer, says another. A third one might say that she always looked at the bright side of things. A fourth might confess to having to grit his teeth for years. I think of all my 6 a.m. trudges against the wind and the rain. Maybe they strengthen my resolve. I think of trying to ignore the cracked vials or of crossing my fingers to ensure my car would be unscathed. More character building efforts. However, maybe the secret is knowing just when to expect that the cold wind off the river will become gentler, a zephyr in contrast to those biting gusts. Or knowing in which tree well to expect the first daffodils, always cheerful. Or when I'll be overwhelmed by the strong scent of honeysuckle coming from the park, our park. I miss the knife sharpener, sharpeners who also were harbingers of spring, although sometimes I'd hear their bell on a spring-like Sunday in February. I miss some really favorite neighborhood spots. I bet very few of you remember drinking a beer on the patio of the balcony or in the bowels of Bay 100. What about the Abbey? In contrast, how much joy comes from seeing those dependable souls who are still walking their dogs in the rain. Dogs change, owners grayer and bowed, but still grinning despite the ungodly weather. Or welcoming Hector, still delivering mail in his shorts on December 1st. And what about that lovely UPS guy that Hetty mentioned? He was delivering packages to my building when I first moved here at the very end of 1974. And friends, he's still delivering packages, also grayer and a bit heavier, but still with that remarkable smile and that wave of his hand. The sadness, too, for the lovely couple, Mutt and Jeff in my head for the differences in their sizes, who were kindness epitomized, always gentle, now gone. They'd hold court outside the apartment building next to mine, and I'd always stop to chat. She died, but he had his regular hours of walking first one block and then another, and then down to 72nd Street for lunch with a friend. We watched their son grow up, didn't we? Where are they? Even if you've lived here only a year or two, I bet you've already staked claims to the images you'll remember decades from now. Even if you don't imitate me and live here for over 50 years. Thanks to you all.
I think 50 years deserves recognition because it's uncommon. People tend to move. When you think about how many people live in this neighborhood, we have 2,000 apartments. I guesstimate that means 5,000 people. And in more than 15 years, we've only identified 50 people who have been here for 50 years. So although it's a lot of people, percentage-wise compared to all the people who have lived in the neighborhood, it's quite small. So it is an accomplishment, Martha and Nancy and Celia, and tonight you get a moment in the sun to acknowledge that. So next of our three, and Sally, who was inducted a few years ago, right? You must be up to 55, 56. Which it might be. Yes, I guess it's 56. So next on our roster is Nancy White, sitting right here in the front row. Nancy and her recently married husband, his last name, if you can believe it, was also White, but spelled differently. Were living on the other side of Broadway when they first married and needed more space than they had. So they took a walk and they walked across 102nd Street and figured they would talk to the doorman and find a super and find an apartment. And that's exactly what they did. There were 2 units available in the second building they stopped at. They looked at the first one and it seemed fine, but then they took a peek at the second one and discovered that if you look just right out one of the windows, it had a river view. And that's open, and that's the one they took. And there Nancy has been ever since. Nancy's originally from Maine and gradually migrated south to us in New York City, stopping first in Boston, where she was a professional dancer. Her work in dance brought her to New York City, where she performed with the Metropolitan Opera Ballet Company, among other groups. A knee injury required her to give up dancing, but she never lost her love for the arts and had many jobs in industries related to music. Excuse me. She also is a proficient musician and has played the prima balalaika for more than 40 years, performing Russian folk music in a variety of settings, both here and abroad. Along the way, she earned a master's degree in applied linguistics and became a teacher of English as a second language, and has applied those skills during repeated visits to China and Russia and at Bronx Community College. She participates in BARP groups whenever she can, and she loves to swim, read mainly nonfiction, and travel. These days, difficulty with her knee presents a challenge, but instead of traveling, she watches Rick Steves' show on PBS to fill the gap. Comparing the neighborhood now to when she moved in, she observed that people don't sit outside their buildings in lawn chairs as they used to. And that although so many of the smaller businesses have gone, she's happy that the Hungarian pastry shop remains a mainstay. She frequented it often when she worked as a tour guide at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, and still goes there, very recently making a connection to a young Barnard student, and wound up attending Easter services at the cathedral with the student and the student's sister. She says that looking north and south on West End Avenue is pretty much the same now as it was 50 years ago. But compared to the towers on Broadway, she finds those unsightly, as do many of us. She hopes that the neighborhoods appeal to those with an interest in the arts, as evidenced by streets named for Humphrey Bogart and Norman Rockwell, and an entire building named for the Gershwins, continues, although she fears that high rents will be a stumbling block for young people starting out in the arts. Please thank me in welcoming Nancy to our 50-year holiday.
Thank you, Peggy.
You're welcome.
And I noticed my name was misspelled.
No, I want the credit on the
In the beginning, I'm white, like the Isle of Wight, and my husband was like the color, so we were white. And
The closed captioning on the screen just does voice recognition. Nobody typed that.
Oh.
In my notes, it is IGH.
we had a daughter named Rowena White, and we took advantage of the neighborhood and all the cultural activities here, and she only had 18 years. She had a good life.
And I'm sure she was greatly amused by introducing herself as White.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for the presentation.
All right, last but not least, before I tell you about Celia Knight, I must thank her. She's been a Block Association board member for 14 years, about to begin her 15th, serving as recording secretary for many of those years, and very regularly volunteering to staff not only our events, but when the Block Association is attending some or other organizations' event, she'll be the one at the table representing us. So thank you, Celia, for your service for us. Celia was born in Brooklyn. She lived a little while on Long Island before she found her way back into the city, where she attended Barnard College. After graduating, she was living in a residence downtown. She wound up in a kerfuffle with another resident having to do with laundry. She consulted an organization that specialized in housing rights to find out whether she had any recourse, and the person she spoke to recommended moving. That person had a connection with the landlord in this neighborhood and suggested she come uptown and have a look. So she did, and she moved in and has been with us ever since. So it's an interesting way to go about finding an apartment, I think. Coincidentally, when she moved in, she did have relatives living in the neighborhood, and it was very convenient to be able to see them more often and more easily because they were so close by. Celia spent much of her professional life in publishing at a time when publishing was changing. So she learned a lot of new skills as the computerization of publishing Wow. She was an excellent typist on a manual typewriter and became an early adopter of the IBM Selectric, which was the gold standard at the time. She learned entry code typesetting. She's been a proofreader and a copy editor of indexes. She continues to put that skill to use, copy editing the index of newsletter content created by our very special volunteer, William Avery Hudson. I'm glad to see you here so we can acknowledge you publicly. In addition to volunteering with the Block Association, Celia sings with the Voices of New York Community Chorus, participates in a Zoom discussion group that she described as being about spiritual, philosophical, metaphysical, and existential topics. Although the Dodgers are long gone from Brooklyn, but she remembers going to games as a kid, she still has cousins in Brooklyn and makes regular trips there to see them. When we talked about how the neighborhood had changed, Celia recalled that when she moved in, people were concerned that she was going to live north of 96, which is no longer the case. At the time, their concerns were obviously well-founded because she remembers that someone was stabbed on the very day that she moved in. Was that in the building or on the block? It was on the block. On the block, that's what I thought. She remembers that there were many more single-room occupancy hotels, and that, of course, the stores were different, but that people actually did their shopping in stores rather than ordering on Amazon. She counts the changing coffee landscape as a positive, and the rehabilitation of the Broadmoor Scolari as a big plus. When she moved in, it was not usable, having been blacked out during World War II and just left to ruin. So although the Block Association already existed when she moved in, that's a constant too. And she'd love to see more younger people join because she recommends it to all as a means of continuing education in all manner of ways. She's found it very rewarding. And I hope your words inspire other people to join us too. So thank you, Celia, for your there anything you hear? Okay, Celia has the floor.
Thank you. I'm speechless.
Okay. We have one more order of business. Oh, I almost forgot. Martha, you know that I'll come by tomorrow to bring you your certificate of achievement, a very valuable keepsake of this important engagement.
Thank you.
I want here, Nancy, for you. Suitable for framing, although it doesn't include the frame.
Thank you so much, Hetty.
And Celia for you. Okay, last order of business, and then we can address a few questions if any of you have them. We need to elect our board of directors. One of our important reasons for having this meeting. Our slate of candidates appears at the bottom of the agenda. I will briefly introduce each one of those who is running for re-election, and we have one new nominee who has not been on the board before. So I'm Hetty Campbell. I am currently the co-chair of the organization as well as newsletter editor. Mary Chestaro Koss is a board member. She is not with us this evening. She runs our Halloween party. Amy Edelman at the end of the table in the black sweater is really the editor of the newsletter, but likes to be called associate. Peter Frishoff at the end of the table contributes to the neighborhood through his efforts on the shared street and through the Street Love program and many other initiatives. Debbie Getz, sitting here in the black sweater with the white detail, runs the longest table. She invented, I can't say she invented, but she launched it here in the States after it was a thing elsewhere, and brought it to our neighborhood and is involved in the rolling out of the event elsewhere. Gary Hack, sitting here in the middle, who presented about the budget and the financial report, is our treasurer. Celia Knight is our recording secretary. Ginger Leaf, is she on Zoom?
I believe so.
Okay, she has been on our board for many, many years and serves as our archivist. She knows where all the paperwork is and how to find something that happened years ago. Rich Robbins here at the end of the table, keeps his finger on the pulse of a lot of the political stuff that's going on in the neighborhood, and also is responsible for all of our tech innovations, including the Zoom and the YouTube, and tonight, the closed captioning. Why didn't we think of that sooner? Ethan Stein is the co-treasurer.
Thanks for stopping by.
He is not here tonight. He's not on Zoom either. Okay, and our newest nominee is Niyusha, do I say Masumi? I'll tell you a few words about Niyusha, because how can you elect somebody without knowing a little something about them? Niyusha is a recent resident of the neighborhood, but she's jumped in with both feet. She's lived in a lot of other places, including 3 cities in Canada and 3 different cities in the United States after she emigrated here from Iran. She's been to lots and lots and lots of different neighborhoods before deciding this was to be her forever home, and we're glad she did. For the last 6-9 months, she's been very active on our board, coming to meetings and helping out in all manner of ways on many different projects. She has a passion for art and cinema, and she wrote to me today that she loves to use art and culture to bring knowledge to the community and increase public awareness while having fun as a career, which I thought was a wonderful ideal in a neighborhood full of artistic people. So that's Niyusha sitting at our welcome table in the. If you were given a little placard when you came in, a little plastic art thing, we need those back when we're done, but that's how we know you are you're eligible to vote unless you're a paid-up member of the Block Association. Normally what we do is we elect the slate in its entirety. So somebody has to move to do that, right? So that's an official thing. Thank you, Eve. Eve has moved that we elect that slate by acclamation in its entirety. Would like to second. Thank you, Tara. All those in favor, you may hold up your little plastic placards. They're on count. I don't have one, so I don't know if this logo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23.
Did you get that? Found it.
Did I get it?
She was digging.
Yeah. So I don't see many opposed. I think, is there anyone with a placard who is opposed? I need to count. No opposed. So anybody who didn't vote wasn't eligible to vote. So motion carried. We have a new board. We will elect our officers at our main meeting, which takes place on the 3rd Tuesday, the date of which I have included. Are there any, Mark earlier asked a question about scaffolding. Gary, do you want to address that or do you want me to? Scaffolding.
It's a big and complicated problem, and we shouldn't have these things up as long as they are. We have I live at 878 West End Avenue, and we have a wonderful superintendent and manager of the building. And he's got it all figured out in which he never puts those things up until they're ready to have the people come in and do the inspection. And immediately after it's finished, they take it away. The others don't do it that way, and beyond my comprehension as to why not on it. But we are going to have a meeting of the building managers soon. And we will ask them to tell us what the best strategy is to minimize the length of time that those things will be there. And hopefully we'll be able to come up with some ideas that get used across the neighborhood to reduce the length of time that those scaffolds are up.
Now, my understanding is that the problem with it is that the scaffolding company is a separate entity from the construction company that will do the work. So you have to get on the calendar for the scaffolding company as soon as they have an opening available, which may not be well coordinated with when you've gotten your permits and your contractor has the time available to do the work. And then once the work is through, getting it taken down falls into the same, when can the scaffolding company come and get it? Yes, Mark.
Understand what you just said, what you thought of earlier with both sides, but how does that answer the question about some of them being there for a couple of years or close to a year without any construction or help being there?
It's an important question. I remember we discussed it a little bit when Sean Abreu was here, and he's been instrumental in getting the scaffolding that was at 104th and Broadway removed. It took a long time, but he got that taken down. So it's
the administration mentioned that.
It's an ongoing problem. I don't know the actual answer to it.
Gary,
Let me just add one other piece to that. The problem is usually not the length of time it takes to get it up, get the person here and do the inspection. The problem is if there are things that need to be remedied, it takes a long time to get them done, and it takes a even longer period of time for the city to approve what they've done on that. And so that's, and if they come back and find it's not adequate, then there's a whole additional round that goes on in this. So it's a complicated process of coordination that's causing a lot of this stuff.
Is anybody monitoring it though? As to how long these companies are there?
Anybody on our board? No. Anybody in the city? I don't know.
But I'm definitely not an expert on this, but years ago, I was visiting my aunt who lived at 74th and West End. And we got there within a few minutes after a chunk of the building had fallen off and tragically killed a young girl. So the reason for a lot of the scaffolding is that there have been inspections that have found that the buildings are dangerous. And the scaffolding is there to protect New Yorkers. And it's very costly to fix the buildings. So some buildings that don't have enough money just put up scaffolding and leave it there instead of fixing the buildings. So it's a problem, not just with timing, not just with all these other concerns, but also buildings having enough money to make sure that their buildings are safe and tragedies like this won't happen again.
Just one more question to add on to that. Being in the co-op, we've had this art done many years ago, but they were always usually on time. But that all came off of our maintenance. Now, all that's going through with these other buildings, are people being charged? Or do they have to wait until the actual work starts and then they get charged?
No, they pay for the scaffolding from the client's rent. Buildings pay for the rental of the scaffolding from when it's installed to when it gets taken down. It's expensive for the buildings. It's not optimal for them either. Any other questions? Comments? expressions of gratitude for our board.
Well done.
Thank you all for the support of the Block Association. Thank you for being here. You can leave the plastic cards on the table, and if you have it in you, then put a chair or two away. We'd be grateful. Rich.
I have a motion to adjourn.
Oh, thank you. Anybody want a second? Second. We have a second. All in favor?